probably figure out what happened in episode 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, and 6 and 7. But like off the top of my head right now, I couldn't really tell you. I know generally what happened in all these episodes, and there's some cameos that show up. There's some cameos that are cool to see. Almost in every episode. There are definitely tie-ins to the larger Star Wars universe. So people who are like super Star Wars nerds, I'm sure that they're looking at these and picking out all the Easter eggs and all the references and things like that. But I mean, when I'm recommending something, I'm kind of going for like what would the casual nerd think about this. So you're predisposed to nerdy content, but not necessarily your Star Wars nerd or your Marvel nerd or whatever. So I think that if you're just a general nerd, you'll probably like this show, but you should probably, as you said, Colin, binge it as opposed to trying to keep up with it week to week, because there honestly are episodes that are forgettable, and they're going to have 16 episodes in this entire season, and they're as we were talking about in the several weeks ago when we reviewed the first 2 episodes, it's really a kid's show, so it's a slower burn, and there is a kind of a lesson of the week, not necessarily a lesson of the week every single week, but they're toting around a kid, which is fine. But yeah, I think if you're gonna watch it in chunks. I've been watching it weekly, but I mean, you don't have to watch it weekly to get the most out of it. So it's not a have to see. It's kind of a wait and see recommendation for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it definitely, because I remembered when I was watching the Clone Wars and also Rebels, I definitely felt as though it was much more compelling when you watch it in bunches, and also kind of like the iconic moments from those series. It kind of builds up to that, and then if you kind of watch it weekly, it's just kind of you get thrown off by it, and then you're just like, oh, it's just one off, and then just my Star Wars fix for that day. So I think that definitely there's more to be desired, and it's definitely, like you said, it's a kids show, and they need to kind of appeal to the young audience, and that's why we have a young girl that's in this series as well. So it kind of like we can almost in a lot of ways project in some ways what the young girl is feeling throughout the series. So she definitely does play a major role as the series goes along.
Yeah. Each one of these episodes, there's a major plot element. So something, whatever's driving the narrative in that episode, but very little of whatever's driving in the narrative in the episode has anything to do with the overall arc of the season. So there might be one or two things that are important to the overall arc of the season. So it's a lot of plot that has nothing to do with anything, and it really is hit or miss whether or not the plot in that specific episode of the week is interesting to you or not. So that's why I said that's why I think it's a bingeable, or even if you're not going to binge the entire thing, wait a couple weeks.
Right.
So like we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So actually, is it episode 7? So we are.
I believe it's episode 7. Yes.
5, 6, 7. So we are. I guess there was like 5 episodes since the last episode.
Right.
So yeah, check in every couple weeks, or just wait until 16 weeks at the end, or the 7 more weeks until the end. All right. Do you want to talk about any spoilers, or do you want to move on to the?
I think that I'll give minor spoilers. Let's just say. So
Okay,
if you want to put up some spoiler warning thing, that's fine. Minor ones there.
Spoiler alert. We're gonna talk about some spoilers for the last couple episodes, and now at the top of my head, I thought it was 4 episodes, and now I have to struggle to think about to separate the episodes, the 5 episodes in my head. So I'll let you talk, and hopefully you remember them better than I do.
Sure. I think that what was what was very interesting was that some of the voices actually were very familiar, and so when I looked up when I looked it up online, and so one of the characters, Sid, was voiced by Rhea Perlman. I was like, wow, like that's totally makes sense. And you haven't heard from her for a while and stuff like that, but it was just like kind of interesting that it was her voice that was doing it. And then there's definitely a couple of other cameos that you callbacks from other shows. So in this most recent one, we have a callback from the Clone Wars series. So there's one major character from that. Not a Jedi though, so don't get your hopes up on that. And then there's another character that you saw, a younger version of that character. I think we alluded to this character before in our previous review. So but you definitely see this character as well, and you'll see her. Sorry.
Yeah.
You'll see her a little bit.
No, I mean, we're talking about spoilers now. So we had our, we talked for almost 5 or 6 minutes on non-spoiler review. So I just say that it was Fennec Shan.
Yes, Fennec Shan. Yes. Okay.
Which was played by Ming-Na Wen in the live action Mandalorian show. I think we did. Actually, I don't think we actually did talk about this. It's been a month since we talked about this show. I think we've been in our production chat. We've been talking about it, about her age. I don't think we talked about it in our last video though, because I don't think she showed up in the second episode.
Yeah. That's true.
She showed up in like the third episode, I think, when they were trying to get supplies. So Fennec Shan showed up. Then Rex showed up in the last episode. In between, I think, yes, the last episode being earlier today. Last week's episode, they had the Martell, maybe a mix, the sisters, not Martell.
Yes. Totally forgot the name.
So in the last season of Clone Wars, there was a mini arc where Ahsoka was kind of running around with these twin sisters, and they show up in episode 6 as they started out as mercenaries when they were with her, or kind of like or like hustlers when they were with her, but it seems like they're working against the new empire. So they're the beginnings of the resistance. The resistance really doesn't exist yet, or the rebels don't really exist yet. But this is the very beginnings of the rebel resistance to the empire, and the main characters of our show are still trying to figure out where they fit in this new universe, or in this new galaxy rather, with its differing political orientations. That question came up this week as well, because this week, as we mentioned, Rex shows up, and he's also seems to be working in a kind of nascent rebel fashion as well, and he's trying to push these guys to kind of be on the side of the rebels, but they're still trying to they're still very disoriented, and they're still trying to figure out how to get their feet underneath of them, given that they have the responsibility of Omega, this child, which was was completely different than any other responsibility they've had in their lives. So they're still trying to figure that out before they figure out what they're going to do with the rest of their lives as well. But it seems like everyone that they're meeting is kind of nudging them in a direction towards more meaningful application of their talents, as opposed to what they're doing right now, which is basically just mercenary work on behalf of the character that you mentioned was that's voiced by Rhea Perlman.
Rhea Perlman. Yep.
Yeah. Danny DeVito's wife from Cheers.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, Cheers is an '80s sitcom way back in the day. So so it's definitely. I think we're dating ourselves a little bit.
Yeah, if you know Danny DeVito, you know him more recently from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So his wife is also an actress, and she's been acting pretty much as long as he has been acting. So
correct. Correct. Yeah, and then I think there was one other character that I Saul Guerrero was also in one of the earlier
he
episodes.
showed up in the
as well.
second episode when they were sent out to second or the first episode when they were sent out to basically kill civilians, and they wouldn't do it.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, Saul showed up. We got a cameo from Muchi, which I thought was the thing that Luke killed in.
Oh yes.
But
Rancor, yes.
Yeah, the Rancor that Luke killed. So like the baby version of the Rancor that Luke killed. Looking it up online though, the name of the Rancor that he killed has a different name. So Luke didn't kill Muchi.
That's why I was like, yeah, that part really kind of I was wondering if that was going to be the case.
Yeah.
Like, was that the Rancor that killed? That's a very deep cut. Were they going to do that? Because if they were very bold and then say, yeah, Luke killed the Rancor, and then you have this character attachment to this young Rancor, and you're like, oh my gosh, he actually killed him. No, so hopefully that's not the case. Like you said, Nathan.
Yeah, it would be weird for them to basically make us attached to this thing as a child, and then later on we know that he's gonna die from Luke. So who knows why they switched out Rancors, but like at this point Luke is a baby. So there's 20 years. So maybe I don't know what the lifespan of a Rancor is, but they've some time between then and when he grows up and he's like 20 something or 19. He's 19 I think in the New Hope.
Right, 19.
They switch out Rancors.
Hopefully that's the case, because it's just kind of like very weird if not. So
yeah. And this is the deep cut nerdy whatchamacallit. And this is even not even the ridiculous level of Star Wars minutia that someone can get into, because they have Arabic letters all over the place, and there are people that are actually translating those things for every single episode. I can't get to that letter. I can't get to that level. It's so yeah. So if you're really interested in the arcane aspects of the Star Wars universe, as we mentioned in the spoiler-free review, it's enjoyable to watch it every week to see those Easter eggs, but it's not something you really have to watch every week to get the overall story and have it impact on you. So
definitely.
All right, so we have been talking about for about 16 minutes. We can switch over to Loki, the first episode of Loki. Let me switch out that. Colin, what did you think of episode 1, which dropped on Wednesday, of Loki?
Yeah, so it's
spoiler-free thoughts, of course.
Yeah, spoiler-free thoughts. So overall, I would say just another. Marvel has really done some really amazing shows. The last, this is the third show that they've come out on Disney Plus. To two other shows are definitely very amazing as well in their own different ways. Loki tends to be more towards those that kind of like WandaVision a lot more. Definitely more kind of fantastical, more into kind of like the weirdness and the kind of like the bizarre. So if you really like WandaVision, you're probably going to like Loki a lot more. There's definitely great story bits throughout, great dialogue. The cast is very diverse as well. It's just like, it just hits you in the face, and it's great to kind of see that evolution from where Marvel Studios was back in the Iron Man days. It's just been a very refreshing type of thing that they've really kind of put this all to get this whole universe together, and you're trying to explore some of these bit pieces. And overall, I would highly recommend it right now. I can't wait for the next episode, actually, because it kind of drives me in a very different way than say WandaVision did, and also definitely much different from Falcon and Winter Soldier. But But yeah, overall, I it's very fun, very enjoyable, and I'll get to kind of like the more the kind of like the deep dive of Loki himself later on, and why I found that very interesting in the spoiler part. But overall, great first episode.
Yeah, I had a similar reaction in contrast to my thoughts about Bad Batch. I think this is a must see if you like geeky stuff. Watch it every week because there's an underlying mystery that's interesting that you get hooked in the first episode. Also, just the acting by the cast. So, without getting into too much detail about what happened in the episode before we get into spoiler talk. So the acting of the acting of Tom Hiddleston and now I'm blanking on
Owen Wilson.
Owen Wilson. Them playing off each other is really cool. Also, we have Gugu.
Mbatha-Raw.
Yeah, she's part of the cast. She doesn't have much to do in the first episode, but there's another actress who showed up in Lovecraft Country whose name
Wunmi Mosaku.
Yes. So she showed up in Lovecraft Country last year. That's if anyone is familiar with Lovecraft Country. She played the sister to one of the main characters in that show. She's awesome in this show as well, but it's mostly in this first episode. It's just Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston bouncing off of each other and Tom Hiddleston's reactions, because it's not. I don't think there's any spoilers to say that the way this starts is with a different Loki than we were left with in Infinity War. In Infinity War, Loki died. Spoilers for Infinity War, which came out in 2019. Or so, when did it come out? 2019?
2018.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure that everyone has seen Infinity War. so Loki died in Infinity War. So how do we have a Loki show? If you watched Endgame, you saw Loki in 2012 jump away. So that's the Loki that we're dealing with. The Loki that tried to attack the world and subjugate it. So it's a very different kind of Loki than the Loki that had a lot of character growth. So it's interesting to see Loki at that place in his character development, and that place in his maturity, and see him saying some of the same off the wall grandiose things that he would say back in 2012 before he matured and got a little bit more humble and a little bit more. I mean, he's still mischievous all the way up to the end, which is kind of what got him killed. But because he thought he was clever, even more clever than Thanos, and he wasn't. But he definitely grew over the years, but this is an earlier version of Loki that is far more full of himself, and it's interesting to see that guy. See that guy put in the situation and what the situation does to him. So yeah, that just that's as much as I can say without saying what actually happens to him. But it's cool to watch. I don't know what the rewatchability is on this episode, because I did try to rewatch it and I kind of fell asleep the second time I tried to rewatch it. And that might have been just because I was tired, but there are a ton of Easter eggs in this. If you were one of those people that went on those Easter egg hunts during WandaVision, there are lots and lots of things to look into in this episode, and probably in this show in general, but specifically in this first episode, there are lots of things that I could list off. And this is without even doing research for Easter egg video that I realized or I saw. So yeah, so it's like I said, it's a must see for me. That's my recommendation. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And should we get into like a little bit more into the spoiler talk here at this point?
So just going forward, we're gonna spoil the episode. get into the specifics of why we like the episode. So spoilers ahead after this point. All right.
Okay, so I think that there are definitely some Easter eggs that kind of came out, right out of the blue, and just going into the time variance authority was really fascinating, kind of a world building exercise, and also. I think that some people kind of described it as I kind of like the bureaucracy of it, like the kind of mundane, like tedious type of world that they're trying to build there. And everyone has had that type of experience, whether you go to the registry of motor vehicles or jury duty or something like that. So think of that type of inane kind of repetitive, downtrodden type of behavior, and people that work there. Not that those people are bad. It's just that it's just kind of monotonous in some ways, and it's just like kind of so it's kind of like that. And then the funny bit about him picking the number, and then the guy that was in front of him, I think he worked at Goldman Sachs or something. And he kind of I don't know if they killed him or was it he disappeared or whatever, but he was just so just his reactions to it, Tom Hiddleston's reaction to it was just so amazing. And then he's just like, oh my gosh, I'm like scared straight. I need to get a number, basically, like he's like at the deli line or something like that. So that was just amazing. And then the part like right before, I think there was a scroll there. So that was really fascinating.
There was a scroll there. There might have been Peggy Carter in the background as well. So she was there was a Peggy Carter variant. Some people think
really.
So the scroll was actually dressed like. So if you remember Captain Marvel, when she went up to the ship, she found Mar-Vell's ship. There was a bunch of Skrulls that Mar-Vell had hidden there. There was a Skrull in a tracksuit, just like the Skrull in the tracksuit who was in the Time Variant Authority. So it looks like this variant messed with the Tesseract on the ship. Because remember, the Tesseract was on the ship. And he created a whatchamacallit. So that tracksuit Skrull in some timeline probably messed with the Tesseract, and he was being arrested. That's what people think, why he was there. There was also a Peggy Carter, so there was some variant of Peggy Carter that messed with time. So she was there as well in the background because it was. I don't know if they rehired the actress whose name is slipping from
Haley Atwell.
But they dressed up a woman from the back that looked just like Peggy Carter. It was great.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even notice that one, and I think that is just. Yeah, it was just so fascinating to kind of that world building was just great, and then the Miss Minutes was just so amazing. Like the animation and all that was just really well done, and I just felt as though you're almost immersed in that world, and you really want to know a lot more about it. And it's just and then the part where they strip him down, and then they had this please sign every word that you said, and he said this is absurd, and so great the dialogue back and forth with that. It was just amazing. And then you mentioned earlier, Nathan, in the spoiler-free part of it, just the interactions between Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston, just great dialogue all throughout. Overall, just like they play off each other so well, and it's just great entertainment, and it was just pretty much in one place too. One last thing that I want to mention about was that when he was appearing in front of the judge, played by Gugu Mbatha-Raw, like he was basically saying, so that the Avengers, like so Loki knew that the Avengers came back in time to mess around.
Yeah, because he could smell.
And so she was basically saying, so what's going on with the Avengers? Like, why didn't you stop them? Like, why didn't you arrest Tony Stark? And he's like, because I could smell Tony Stark's perfume. And it was just so interesting. And he's like, no, we it's almost like though like she gave them a pass. And I was like, that was it? Like you gave them a pass? Like
they did
time very.
They did put the stones back though. So So maybe they were supposed to do it, and because they knew they were going to put the stones back, they clipped their own branches so they didn't have to have the TVA come in and clip those branches. They clipped their own branches. So I think
so. You have to. So big kudos to the Hulk then for saying all that stuff to the Ancient One, in Endgame, because the Time Variance Authority would probably be coming after the Hulk then. If that's the case.
Yeah, it seems that way. I'm sure they didn't even think about this show when they were writing that stuff, but now they have to make everything fit. But yeah, it was that whole scene was interesting because the sequences before that scene were of course interesting as well, because he gets to the TVA. He thinks that he can threaten people, and later on in the episode we figure out why he's threatening people, why he thinks so highly of himself, why he thinks that he can talk his way out of anything, because that's really all he has, right? Even though he has magic, he doesn't have Wanda magic. He has illusions, so he can't like push things or move things with his mind, or he has illusions. So he has to talk tough. I mean, he has super strength compared to like a human and stuff like that. But in the TVA, he's like neutered, and it takes him a long time to realize that he's working with people that are far more powerful than he is. First starting with like stripping him from his clothes, then he's so unsure whether or not he's going to get melted as a robot. He's like, are there a lot of people that don't know whether or not they're androids? There's just that whole sequence is funny. I mean please verify this everything that you've said thing. And then, like you said, the line that he stands in after he sees the video, which the video has a bunch of Easter eggs in it as well. It talks about Nexus universes, which we heard about in WandaVision, and that we also talked about when we were talking about WandaVision, that Wanda is a Nexus being who was aware of the old reality or multiple realities. She's a Nexus being inside of the Marvel comics. A Nexus being is constant across various realities. So that was the Easter egg. The Timekeepers are of course part of Marvel as well. So is the TVA. The Timekeepers are actually, I think, created by someone else in the future. At the end of time, and they're basically just trying to keep the timeline straight so that their creation happens. So if there's a variation into the timeline, they might not be created at the end of time. So that's basically their motivation for keeping the timeline straight. Which makes me think, if I'm speculating to the future, the TVA people don't know that, and they think that they're keeping the timeline straight to stop a multiverse war, and it might be just to make sure that these people, these beings exist, because their main motivation is to keep the timeline as straight as possible, so that they exist at the end of time. Otherwise, they don't exist at the end of time. So it's interesting. We'll see whether or not they go into those specifics in this show, because there are multiple mysteries, because the whole TVA thing, the Timekeepers thing is kind of hand wavy, and they seem like bureaucrats up to the point where they seem like cult people in a cult who just are praying to these Timekeepers. So that's that. I'm sure there will be more developments there. And then when he gets in front of the judge in front of Gugu, he tries to use his magic, his illusions, and he realizes that doesn't work. So it's interesting. It's interesting the process that they went through, and I think this episode is like 45 minutes. The process that they went through to get Loki from 2012 to almost the same emotional space that it took Loki 2018 to get to. It took years for him to get to. kind of put him through the ringer, kind of stripping him down, stripping him of his identity, stripping him of any semblance of him or any pretense of him thinking that he has any sort of power, all the way up to his conversation with Owen Wilson, where he's really defiant and he's back and forth and they're pushing against each other. And Owen Wilson is like, he's not flustered at all because he knows that he's where they are, that he's far more powerful than him. He knows things that Loki doesn't know, and he just lets him talk, which is interesting. Like I said, the back and forth between Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston is great. When he escapes, he realizes that none of the Infinity Stones work there, and they're just collecting Infinity Stones like Chosky's, because you gotta imagine that every time there's a variation to the timeline, just like the Ancient One said, that creates a branch. So they have a lot of copies of the Infinity Stones, and they do nothing inside the TVA, because the TVA is outside of time. So yeah. It's interesting to see him broken down in less than an hour, and him coming to the realization that he is weak, and he puts on this show of strength because he doesn't have actual power like, say, Thor does. He's not the god of thunder. He's not the god of he doesn't have a magic hammer. He just has his tricks. So it's part of his trick to talk and bluster.
Right. And I think that it's definitely very interesting. And just, you mentioned about the Infinity Stones, and I think that was kind of like almost like the gear, almost like I can see from his expression, from Tom Hiddleston's expression, that, oh yeah, this is like not. They treat this as like paperweights. I think that's what the guy said, was like people treat it as paperweights, and he's like, basically these are the most powerful things in the universe, and it's just paperweights to these individuals. So, that's like one realization, mind blown moment for him. And then there was another one where I think it was definitely when he was shown his future. Like different parts of Thor: The Dark World, where his mother died, and how Owen Wilson's character was basically telling him that, you led the elves to her death, basically. You led her down there.
Right.
And then he really felt it there. He was like crying, basically. He was just like really feeling that he was responsible for his mother dying. Yeah. And then the other part was toward the end, when Thanos was basically sucking the life out of him. He really felt it there too, because it felt that he was always saying in the past, in the Avengers to 2012, he was saying, I'm a god, and, you are beneath me, and that type of sort of thing. But then from that to him seeing that he's dead, from a greater being out there, I think it really did humble him. And I think that it's there's still definitely a mischievous side to him, but at the same time, you're right, Nathan, is that it took him 6 years to do that in the movies, but it just took him less than an hour in this show. Yeah. To get to that point where he was in 2018.
Yeah, and from how pompous he is, it's a couple things there. They're working on a couple levels, because given how pompous he is, and given that he and people who operate in a toxic manner assume everyone is operating in the same toxic way that they do. So you understand for the majority of the runtime why he thinks this is an illusion, because that's what he would do. That's how he operates, right? That's how he operates to get power. So he assumes that they're just trying to fool him, and this is an illusion. And so it takes him a while to come to the realization that, no, this is an illusion. You died. You will never rule anyone. That was never your destiny. That wasn't your glorious purpose. I think that's the name of the episode.
Yes, glorious purpose. Yep.
Yeah, that was you had no glorious purpose. You were destined to die at the hands of Thanos, and it takes him a while to realize that no one needs to obfuscate with or lie to you the way that you do to get by. The stakes are just different for them here, and they don't care about the petty things that you're interested in. So yeah, it's very cool to see him take that journey and see Owen Wilson bounce off of him, because there are parts of that conversation where Owen Wilson is like very stern with him, like saying, do you enjoy killing, trying to push him to a breakthrough. But he also seems like he's like a camp counselor who's also interested in him and trying to get him to like a breakthrough, because he says that he's when he's finally broken down, he says that I'm a villain, and he says, yeah, I don't see it that way. So it's interesting to see how Owen Wilson plays that character. He's really good in this show.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that it's definitely, for those people that really like the Disney Plus shows, Marvel basically termed it very early on when they started this whole process with Disney Plus, was to kind of really take a deep dive into these characters that we know a lot about over this kind of 10 plus year period. But again, did we know a lot about Wanda? Did we know about Vision back, before the show? No, we didn't. Not really. And then did we know about Falcon, now Captain America, and Bucky? No, we really didn't. They were both Steve Rogers' sidekick, and now it's like, Loki is just such an amazing. We know him such a villainous character, in the beginning, but then he kind of changed, and like you said, Nathan, matured throughout. But then they kind of pulled the rug out of you and said, what if this happened, where the 2012 Loki is the one that we're trying to do a character study on. So I think that's definitely it speaks to the creativity of what Marvel is doing with all these wonderful characters. And I think that, I think that it's definitely a good kind of way to see almost the human condition. I mean, we talked about how in WandaVision was about grief. A lot of things was about grief, fear of loss, lost love, romance, that type of stuff. In Falcon and Winter Soldier, it was really about race relations, kind of like mirroring what we have at the current moment. And then now with Loki, it's more like a psychology of what makes a person bad in some ways. I mean, that's how I kind of saw it. It almost seems as though he was you show sympathy for that type of character there, that you can understand what his machinations are, and also just again, just kind of like some ways, just a reflection of how bad Odin was in some ways, because we did see that in Ragnarok a little bit, just the kind of his legacy, and so with Loki is the same thing. It's just like he does feel remorse that his father passed on, but you can tell that it wasn't like tears. It was just literal tears when his mother died, and it was just like he had that type of love for his mother. But again, this is the type of stuff that is just really fascinating and intriguing, and I think it really brings a lot of depth to the characters and really makes you care about them a lot more.
Yeah. Odin definitely was a neglectful father, and also a father who obviously favored Thor over Loki, which is probably why he created a lot of the complexes that Loki has. And as we saw in the first movie, we realized the reason that he did that is because he's Loki Laufey's son, not Loki Odin's son.
Right.
If you look at the paperwork that they have on Loki, that's one of the things that they have on there. His actual name. They also say that his sex is fluid, which is interesting because Loki there's been a kid Loki, there's been a female Loki, there's been an old Loki, just like there's been an old Thor, and we might see old Thor in Thor: Love and Thunder. So there have been various iterations of these characters. So I think that the Loki that's running around and creating havoc, because at the end of this episode we find out that Owen Wilson is doing all this because he wants to enlist this Loki who is far less powerful, to catch another Loki. And I think this other variant, this other Loki, is probably Lady Loki, not this Loki. So someone in a different timeline, or a different or further in his future, or a future of a different multiverse rather. That's wreaking havoc. So that should be interesting to see. They don't do anything. They don't do anything accidentally. They're always seeding some things, and sometimes they pick up those seeds and they actually plant them somewhere. Sometimes they don't. But I think that specifically is going to show up later on, just in this show, either Lady Loki or Kid Loki in this show. So that should be interesting to see. Later on. The other thing that was interesting about this episode, that was really cool about this episode, people have like compared this to the TVA to like Beetlejuice, the waiting area and Beetlejuice and things like that. But it made me think of Legion, and not enough people watched Legion because it was super weird. But the Art Deco kind of like retro vibe to how Legion was put together, that's what it reminded me of. I don't think it's not as weird as Legion is, or it's not as weird as Legion was rather yet, but it looks like it could get there. We'll see whether or not the mainstream Marvel will get as weird as Legion did. But Legion was an awesome show. If it goes in that direction, that'd be great. But it's just a great start of a season, I think. Yeah. And it's more weird already than WandaVision, even though WandaVision was like, what's going on here. It's just like otherworldly. I mean, a 50s sitcom is weird to see Wanda and Vision in, but this is like otherworldly weird, where there's so many questions. So like weird at another level. So
yeah, I think it does. It also reminded me with the TVA, the world building. It reminded me a little bit of Rick and Morty. It does remind me of that. I've been kind of rewatching a little bit of the episodes, and just of course, Rick and Morty is so much more weirder than this. Yeah. But in any case, it's kind of reminded me of that. And also the one last thing that I want to mention was DB Cooper. So I did do some background reading on the individual. So basically it was pretty much how they depicted it. But at the end it was how he jumped off, and then he went to Asgard, and Owen Wilson's character was saying, "Oh, this is like my favorite thing. You're like DB Cooper. That's awesome." And it's like, yeah, and he basically kind of played it off and said, yeah, I made a bet with Thor. That's why it happened. But it's just, but the real story was pretty much like that in many ways. But what happened was that he parachuted, but they never saw what happened to him afterwards. No one knows what happened to him. So again, it kind of plays into that in some ways, because if Loki was that person, if DB Cooper was Loki, then he basically just disappeared into Asgard. Basically, right. That's the Marvel theory behind DB Cooper.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. It actually, and I'm looking forward to them doing more things like that with the timeline when as he goes off with Owen Wilson to track down this other Thor, this variant that's killing Minutemen, because the troops are called Minutemen in the comics, and I think they're called Minutemen here. This guy or girl that's going around killing different versions these troops. He's also picking up he or she is picking up the things that they use to prune the timelines. So I don't know if they are collecting these things because at some point when they collect enough of them, they can create some sort of branch that can't be pruned, or I don't know what the ultimate goal is there, but they're obviously being collected for a reason. So yeah,
right,
yeah,
definitely.
All right, so that's the last thing I had. Do you have anything else?
I think that was it. Overall, just go see it. I think that it's definitely something. I don't know how many episodes is that, Nathan. Is it like six?
Only six episodes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so definitely will lead you all the way up to Black Widow. So again, so there's definitely great stuff that's coming up from Marvel, and we're only a month away from having to see movies in theaters again with Marvel. So this is a great year to be a Marvel fan, definitely.
Yeah. So we'll be continuing to review this on a weekly basis, and we have a backlog of some reviews that will be dropping soon as well. So we are interested to hear what you guys think about this episode. Comment down below, like and subscribe if you like this content, and we will see you next week. All right, guys. Bye. Thanks.
Bye.